Khanna. Now on to our special segment on climate change. The raging wildfires in Hawaii in the United States are wreaking havoc. The death toll from the catastrophic wildfires in Maui Island has soared to 36, and officials say they are worried that the devastation could intensify as the infernos torch more of the ravished island. The loss of life has marked a staggering increase from earlier reports of 6 deaths. While survivors recall harrowing escapes by car or boat, many residents remain away from their homes, not knowing whether anything but ashes will be left when they return. Thousands are without power or cell phone service due to fires that are being fueled by winds from a nearby hurricane in the Pacific Ocean. Several blazes are also burning on the Big Island, also known as Hawaii Island, a neighboring island to Maui. Authorities have evacuated neighborhoods, closed roads and operated shelters to host thousands of evacuees. An emergency order has been signed discouraging people from coming to Maui, which is a popular tourist destination. About 4,000 visitors are currently trying to leave the Maui island. Thousands there are without cell service due to dozens of power poles collapsing. The full scale of the damage to homes and businesses is not yet known. Much of the destruction has taken place, as we said, in the Maui island town of Lahaina. Parts of the town were destroyed or severely damaged by the blaze. One local resident told the media that every boat in the town harbour was burning. The US Coast Guard has said it had rescued 12 people after reports of residents fleeing into the water to escape the fires. A full assessment of the damage could take months, according to the mayor, and there are concerns about potential riots in the aftermath, they say. The Lahaina fire is one of at least 7 ongoing in Hawaii. About 13,000 people live in the city situated on the western part of the island of Maui. That fire is one of several in Hawaii, fueled by strong winds by Hurricane Dora, hundreds of miles offshore, low humidity as well as dry air. Local officials have said the winds have complicated efforts to use helicopters for firefighting operations. The Federal Emergency Management Agency and the US Marines are assisting in firefighting and search and rescue operations. Fires in Hawaii are typically smaller than those that plague California and other parts of western US. Experts have warned, however, that they are often more damaging as Hawaii's ecosystem evolved without fires before the arrival of humans. Much of Hawaii was under a red flag warning for fire risk when the wildfires broke out, but the exact cause of the blaze is still not known. The powerful winds fanning the flames were generated by Hurricane Dora, a storm that was moving across the Pacific Ocean hundreds of miles south of the Hawaiian Islands. The hurricane, classified as a Category 4 by the Central Pacific Hurricane Center on Wednesday morning, contributed to heavy wind gusts about 60 miles per hour that tore through Maui overnight, knocking out power lines and damaging quite a few homes. National Guard helicopters activated as part of the state's emergency response to the wildfires were grounded as the wind gusts picked up on Tuesday evening. Almost 85% of the wildfires in the United States are caused by humans, according to the National Park Service. Fires that are sparked this way can result accidentally from leaving campfires unattended, burning debris, using various kinds of equipment and discarding cigarettes improperly. Intentional acts of arson are another source of human-caused wildfire.
I'm sad to report that just before coming on this, it was confirmed we've had 6 fatalities that we were able to confirm. And we are still in a search and rescue mode, and so I don't know what will happen to that number. We've had many dwellings, businesses, structures that have been burnt, many of them to the ground, mostly in our Lahaina.
Keeping the focus on climate change, our next story is from Brazil. A dozen rainforest countries forged a pact at a summit in Brazil to demand that developed countries pay to help poorer nations combat climate change and preserve biodiversity. The joint statement, titled United for Our Forests, was issued by Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ecuador, Guyana, Indonesia, Peru, the Republic of Congo, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname and Venezuela. The Amazon, the Congo Basin in Southeast Asia are home to the world's largest rainforests, critical ecosystems that absorb carbon dioxide and house a riotous diversity of species. Brazil's president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, had called this week's Amazon summit in a bid to forge a united front among rainforest nations when they engage in international negotiations like the United Nations COP28 climate summit due to be held later this year. We are going to COP28 with the aim of telling the rich world that if they want to effectively preserve the forest that exists, they need to pay money not only to take care of the canopy but to take care of the people who live under it. That's what Lula said. In the joint statement, the dozen countries called for financing mechanisms to be developed for the world to pay for the critical services that are provided by forests. They also expressed concerns that richer nations have not delivered on a promise to provide $100 billion in climate financing annually to developing nations. Additionally, they called on developed countries to meet an existing commitment to provide $200 billion per year for biodiversity preservation. The countries also condemned the use of environmental measures that they said are disguised as trade restrictions, alluding to the European Union's passage of a law prohibiting firms from importing goods linked to deforestation. This pact builds on an accord by the 8 Amazon nations, which was criticized by some environmentalists for failing to secure a commitment to end deforestation by 2030. Lula da Silva, a two-time former president who has long sought to build multilateral blocs with less developed nations, has repeatedly called on rich industrialized countries to deliver on commitments to finance actions on climate change in poorer countries that did little to cause global warming. At last year's climate summit, Brazil, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Indonesia agreed to form an alliance to pressure rich countries to pay for conservation. The Republic of Congo's inclusion in this week's summit marks a gradual expansion of cooperation among these nations. Brazil's Amazon summit closed with a roadmap to protect tropical rainforests that was welcomed as an important step in countering climate change, but without the concrete commitments sought by some environmentalists to end deforestation. Leaders and ministers from 8 Amazon countries signed a declaration that laid out plans to drive economic development in their countries while preventing the Amazon's ongoing demise from reaching a point of no return. Several environmental groups described the declaration as a compilation of good intentions with little by way of measurable goals and timeframes. However, it was lauded by others, and the Amazon's umbrella organizations of indigenous groups celebrated the inclusion of 2 of its main demands. The international group WWF said in a statement, it's significant that the leaders of the countries of the region have listened to the science and understood the call of society. The Amazon is in danger and we do not have much time to act. However, WWF regrets that the 8 Amazonian countries as one front have not reached a common point to end deforestation in the region. The summit reinforces Brazilian President Lula da Silva's strategy to leverage global concern for the Amazon's preservation. Emboldened by a 42% drop in deforestation during his first 7 months in office, he has sought international financial support for forest protection. Speaking to reporters after Wednesday's meeting, Lula railed against protectionist measures poorly disguised as environmental concern that restrict imports from developing nations, and said developed countries must make good on their pledges to provide monetary support for forest protection. The Amazon stretches across an area twice the size of India. 2/3 of it lies in Brazil, with 7 other countries and the territory of French Guiana sharing the remaining third. Governments have historically viewed it as an area to be colonized and exploited, with little regard for sustainability or the rights of the indigenous peoples. All the Amazon countries have ratified the Paris Climate Accord, which requires signatories to set targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But cross-border cooperation has historically been scant, undermined by low trust, ideological differences, and the lack of government presence. Some scientists say that when 20 to 25% of the forest is destroyed, rainfall will dramatically decline, transforming more than half of the rainforest to tropical savanna with immense biodiversity loss. Well, our final story on Global Lens tonight is on the British royal family and the never-ending royal drama. Well, Britain's Prince Harry is no longer His Royal Highness or